the quiz thing!
Hey, let's talk about mountains. Are you one of those people like me who loves to scream at mountains? At most, you are a glorified hill. At most. I love screaming at mountains. Or maybe you're one of those people who looks at a mountain and you're like, I must stand at the top of that mountain. You know, some people scream at mountains and some people climb them. That's just how mountains work. I bet you've heard of that super tall mountain, Mount Everest. You know that little guy? Do you know what it was named before it was called Mount Everest in 1865? Was it A, Debbie, B, Dread Peak, C, Peak 15, or D, McLean's Point? If you said A, hey, I don't blame you. There are a lot of mountains out there named Debbie, but it's not that. It's C. Peak 15 was the original name until they named it Mount Everest after a guy named George Everest, but they didn't call it that because George climbed this mountain. He had a completely different, difficult task in front of him. He participated in mapping the entire subcontinent of India, which included the Himalayas. This was a really difficult task that included things like math skills and basic tools and lots of walking around measuring land. Do a little figure, measure land. Use some tools, measure land. Walk around, measure land. Side note, there's a high probability that George never even saw the mountain that was named after him. That's a super weird flex, right? Hey, thanks guys for naming the world's tallest mountain after me. I'll get around to seeing it at some point, I'm sure. George, go see your mountain. Climbing to the top of Mount Everest became the ultimate challenge, and it's like super deadly. Okay, which of these dangerous conditions is not one of the things you face when you go to the top of Mount Everest? Is it A, mountain sickness, B, extreme frostbite, C, falling from cliffs, or D, rabies? If you said A, mountain sickness is just another term for altitude sickness, which is a very real deal. If you think you have altitude sickness, consult your doctor immediately. It's D, I made that up. I don't know if you can get rabies on Mount Everest, maybe from a mountain goat? I don't know, that's your homework. Look up, do mountain goats give you rabies? That's important for me to know. When you go to climb Mount Everest, you don't just start climbing, you have to prepare for the rough weather and the altitude and the possible falling from cliffs and the possible goats and all of the things that come into making it all the way to the top. You go into it knowing that it's gonna be tough, but that it's gonna be worth it. You go into it with passion and perseverance, and that's what we call grit. And before we start talking about grit, I wanna clarify something. Not every goal you set is going to be a journey to the mountaintop, and not every goal you set is gonna be a milestone. What I mean is that some goals are smaller hills that get you ready for the bigger hills. Some goals are just the daily routine of doing what's right in front of you, and just consistently doing it over and over. Sometimes they name a mountain after you, and sometimes you make it to the top, but that's not what grit is all about. Grit is that thing that keeps pushing you forward even when you're frustrated, even when the view isn't pretty. It's choosing to face your setbacks instead of taking shortcuts. We all face ups and downs when we do something difficult, so I want to give you something that might help, something that you can keep in your back pocket for those tough times. For I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. Christ gives you the strength to see what's right in front of you and focus on it. Christ gives you the strength to make it up the mountains, but he also gives you the strength to get back up when you fall. Christ gives you the strength to make it through the rough weather and through the tough altitude. He gives you passion and perseverance, so you don't have to shy away from the hard things. Don't shy away from the hard things, for you can do everything through Christ who gives you strength. You can have grit. I'm the Quizman. Goodbye. Oh, hey, it's the... Oh.